Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com with you for another episode of the Steelers Preview, and it's hard to believe this is the last Steelers Preview before the NFL Draft, which will be taking place a week from when this is being recorded live on YouTube next Thursday. By chance, if you're listening to us on audio and you don't know we have a YouTube channel, please go to youtube.com, search BTSC Steelers Radio, subscribe to the channel, like the videos. Costs nothing, helps us out a lot. But joining me as always, the triumphant trio has returned. Bryan Anthony Davis. Some say he's a legend in his own mind. Some say he's just bad. Here he is nonetheless. Bryan, what's up?
Yeah, apparently that's all right. I love it. Yeah, apparently some people think I'm a little more full of themselves, but meet me in person and you might actually think a lot different. I think when the camera comes on here, I become the showman. I become bad. I don't think I'm bad in my neighborhood. Let's just put it that way. But thanks so much. Yeah, if I'm a legend in my own mind, then my mind is a lot more grandiose than anybody thinks.
Well, when you have people calling into my live mailbag show on Tuesday nights on the Locker Room app and they're complaining about you, I feel like you've made it big. That's just my opinion.
Well, yeah, I do appreciate that. I will give that guy a little bit of credit. He kind of wanted me on Twitter and said, "Hey, I wasn't making fun of you. I was just, you do a great job."
It was all in jest. He was just having fun with you. All right, the other part of the triumphant trio, the other leg of the tripod, so to speak, Dave Schofield, the other co-editor. What's going on?
I'm a leg of the tripod. I like that. So, hey, 1 week, and then this, like we talked about on Scobro Show, then all these mock drafts that are just everyone having fun and having a good time and kind of like a bracket. No one ever gets it all right. It's finally going to be the real thing. Can't wait.
I do want to start the show off because we were talking about this right before we went on the air. I spent a good majority of my Let's Ride podcast, which will air on Friday morning, on certain narratives surrounding the Steelers that really make me mad as the draft approaches. I'm going to tell you what my number one was, and I want to see if you guys have one that maybe sticks out. And mine is the narrative that people will say, well, Tomlin and Colbert weren't at their pro day. There's no way they're taking them in the first round. I pray, actually, that they get a really good player, but I hope that it's someone like Zaven Collins where they weren't at Tulsa for his pro day. I would love for it to be that player just so that I could tell all those people, shut up already. All right. That would be great. Bryan, do you have a narrative that just drives you nuts with the draft? Like what people say all the time when they talk about prospects or anything?
Yeah, it's one that you're going to have a hard time agreeing with me and sticking up for me, but it's that the Steelers shouldn't even bother drafting a cornerback because they don't know how to. Because they suck at it. And I'll go back because everybody that even one of our guys, he's on the live chat right now, he put an article out and talked about the good ones and he missed one. And it's Keenan Lewis. A lot of people forget about Keenan Lewis, that he had a great offer from somewhere else. And you're not being attacked. I promise you that. No, it's just, but a lot of people with the corners, they kind of forget that when you're drafting an Artie Burns, and they think that any time that the Steelers go to draft a corner, that it's going to be an Artie Burns situation. That Artie Burns situation was a little bit weird. They went in with something that they should never do. They should never do the position that we got to have this position in the first round or bust. And that's what you get. You get bust sometimes when you are dead set against that position. And when you get the sixth guy at that position in the first round, it's a crapshoot. So
I agree. That's a good one, though. That's a good one about the cornerback.
He's leading into mine. Jeff knows what mine is.
Go ahead, Dave.
You know what mine is based on a little bit of a conversation last night. I can't help myself when people do this. Drives me nuts. I really want to say, you are such an idiot, but I calm down a little bit. I don't say that.
Did say on Twitter, though.
I said it was ridiculous. I didn't call him. I wrote idiot, and then I changed it and said ridiculous.
Very good.
It drives me nuts when people put so much stock into about a player's position ranking. Like, oh, wouldn't you much rather have the top running back rather than the fifth tackle? No. No, it doesn't matter where you fall in your own position group because that changes every year from draft to draft. I've gone off on this before, so I'll do it again since Jeff's given me the microphone to do it. Like I say, with that philosophy, in the second pick, there's no way the Jets should be taking Zach Wilson, because why would you take the second best quarterback rather than the best position somewhere else? And when you get to the Steelers, Jeff should be happy. They should be taking the best punter on the board because all the other position groups their number one's going to be gone. So if you need the number one in a position group, you better go punter in the first round. No, if there are 10 tackles ranked higher than the top tight end, and it comes to your pick, and you have the fourth best tackle, you take the tackle over the tight end rather than saying, "Oh, I want the best tight end." No, I mean, I'm making this up because we know that's not true because we know Kyle Pitts is way up there. Yeah. But that's the thing that drives me nuts is that wouldn't you rather have the second best running back rather than the fifth best tackle? No, I want the best player. No, don't care what number they are at their position because that's relative to year by year, because one guy could be the number one quarterback this year at a next year's draft class. You could be the number 6 quarterback or vice versa. So that really doesn't matter. Sorry, I'm done.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And, we're excited. We're all excited. And ultimately, even the people like that I complained about that said, well, Tomlin and Colbert weren't at the pro day, or with Bryan talking about cornerbacks or Dave talking about position and rankings, we all hopefully want the same thing. And that's, we want the Steelers to have a great draft. We want them to get impact players early. And it's just a matter of how they go about it. And then it goes down to who you feel is the better prospect. And when have the Steelers given us a reason not to trust them? Sure, there's the Artie Burns picks, the Jarvis Jones picks, but I've always felt that for every Artie Burns, there's a Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and I could name a million others that really panned out. Chase Claypool in the second round last year, for crying out loud. But anyways, let's get to some news before we get into the main crux of our podcast today. Mike Tomlin got an extension earlier in the week. That's old news by now, but I do want to know your all's knee-jerk reaction. So I don't want to know, okay, what do you think now? When you heard the news break, what did you think? That's what I want to know. So it could be happy, sad, positive, negative, doesn't matter. Bryan, knee-jerk reaction, what was it?
Good. Awesome. But here we go.
Here we go in what regard?
Here we go with everybody complaining. And you know what? He's off the hot seat for maybe a minute, and everybody's going to throw him back on the hot seat.
You're starting to think like a content creator. Yeah, because your thought went from good to, people are going to complain about this. You start thinking about how the fan base is going to react, and that's fine. That's okay. Dave, what about you? Your knee-jerk reaction was what when you heard about Mike Tomlin's extension?
I need to steer clear of Twitter today.
Again, content creator.
It's just, I write the article. I have it on the website. I'm like, I'm not touching these comments. I'm not even going. Just because people feel so adamantly that they know what's best for the Steelers. That's one of the things that sometimes drives me nuts. It's great. We're all fans. We all love to think that we have our opinions of what's best for the Steelers, but to think that we know better than what they do, kind of crazy in my eyes. That they know what they want with Mike Tomlin. They know what's going on in the locker room. They know how the players feel about him. They know how it's all going to work out. Just like I said, they know their problems and they know their strengths and their weaknesses better than we do because they have all the inside information. But they feel that Mike Tomlin is the guy. I am not a Tomlin apologist. Of course, he has shortcomings. Like my brother, I like to say, we don't live in our fears except in the postseason. I still have a problem with. I still have a problem with the punt.
Yep.
I still will adamantly defend the decision to go onside kick in their previous playoff game because the numbers made sense. The execution was just terrible, and things like that. So people that still want to second guess those things, hindsight's 2020. There's so many times people are like, oh, well, he wasted talent. Oh, yeah, they had amazing offensive talent for years and had a crap defense. Oh, well, they wasted a great defense. Yeah, but they had no running game. It's still trying to get all of it together. It's coming. Well, year after year, you just got to see if it all clicks together. It doesn't. And I still think the fact that they're wanting to keep that stability through the Ben Roethlisberger era and beyond is the decision they made. And I'm not going to argue with it. I think it's fine.
I want to ask you two questions, one of which was a question from a caller on my Tuesday night show. But before we get to that, the only thing that surprised me in this extension was the duration. Was anyone else surprised it was 3 years in a 3-year extension? That's important to know. He had a year. His contract was up at the end of this season. That he got a 3-year extension and not, I don't know, 2. Bryan, did that surprise you that they went ahead and gave him 3?
Not at all. And the reason it did not surprise me, it's going to take a lot for them to fire Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
Now, some people that want him fired in 2009, the year after they didn't repeat in the Super Bowl, they're going to disagree with me on that. And I understand it. But look at the facts. And we talk about this all the time. I've heard you talk about it, Jeff. You talk about it, Dave. Bill Cowher was on such a hot seat in the 2000s. Excuse me, in the late 90s, especially 1998 to 2000. And they started off in 1998 actually well, and then they fell apart. It's going to take it's going to take a lot. It's not going to take one losing season. It's going to take 2 to 3 disasters to pull the trigger on them. And I still think it's going to be tough for them to do because that's not exactly what they do.
Dave, 3 years, was that a lot for you?
Not what I expected, but after seeing it, it makes so much sense because if the Steelers aren't locking into their quarterback long term and they want to keep players around and doing their thing, locking in your coach long term covers for that, So kind of like, for example, Juju Smith-Schuster signed a 1-year deal, knows Ben's back for another year. See what the market is next year, all that stuff. Even if Ben's gone, might make a difference knowing Coach Tomlin's still there, in all honesty. So Bryan's right with a lot of that stuff. And I know some people are like, oh, who cares about no losing seasons? It's all about the playoffs in the last 10 years. You want to know why the Pittsburgh Steelers are all about the postseason and championships? Because they've had great coaches like Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin that set that standard, that is our expectations. If not for them, that we would be thinking about the mistake by the lake and the thoughts that they have to have about everything. So that's part of it, that it's the Rooney family and then the decisions that they have made with their head coaches.
You kind of led into the next question, which was a question that I fielded from a caller on Tuesday night. And that was, do you think that the Steelers bringing Mike Tomlin back, giving him an extension, however you want to call it, will that have an impact on players like Juju Smith-Schuster or someone else, or maybe even other free agents in terms of will this make the Steelers more attractive as either a target to go in free agency or maybe someone staying? Bryan, what do you think?
I was listening to your show when that came on, and you covered it well. And one of the first things that I was thinking was, you see how many Steelers came on Twitter and social media celebrating this? They love the fact that Mike Tomlin's back. So we don't know what's going on in that locker room, but we know that it's a big thing to these guys. And I will say this, when you look at the Tyson Alualu situation, he had a change of heart. We know Juju could have gotten more money elsewhere, but it wasn't enough for him to leave his home of the last 4 years. And Vince Williams was to make 7 last year. The team cut him, broke his heart. He had a chance to get more money and signed for $1.085 million, the league minimum for a 9-year player. So what that tells me is he came back, and all 3 of those guys are coming back for the culture, and the coach is the culture, and they love to play for this guy.
Dave, thoughts?
My thoughts, I'm the numbers guy. It was a $7 million cap hit. It was a $4 million salary, Vince Williams, of the $1.075 million. But the reason you're thinking the number 8 is because his cap hit, because it's a veteran benefit salary, is only $850,000, which is amazing. Basically didn't change the salary cap. And he chose to come back for that. So Bryan's right. Seattle has 2 losses. Let's go.
Okay, before we get into the main topic, I want to go over some of these rules that have been made. In case you didn't know, was it Wednesday? No. Yes, it was Wednesday when the NFL announced, I think there were 7 rule changes that took place. Everything from the return team on onside kicks. They can only have so many players on one side of the field now. I think it's
within the line of it's within the kicking area.
Like the box, whatever.
They have to have 2 guys deep at least.
Why don't you go ahead, Dave? You wrote the article. What are some of the other changes? Jersey rules is a big thing.
Yeah.
I hate
the numbers.
That, by the way.
I'm not a big fan of it either. I'm not a fan of players now changing jerseys. One thing I mentioned in the article, I have not seen yet. I still don't have confirmation of this. There's always been big rules about players changing numbers because any unsold jerseys, they have to buy them. So they basically have to pay to change their number. If they're going to still do that,
They are. The minute I saw on Twitter before we came on, Dalvin Cook, who is a running back for the Vikings, wants to go to number 4. He wore it in high school. He wore it at Florida State. And they're saying that you're going to have to pony up the money for these jerseys. And he's literally weighing the options of, do I really want to do that? Or do I just want to keep my jersey number?
But just think of all the sold jerseys. And this is something that you see out there of people that are like, I invested in a number 11 Chase Claypool, and now I'm going to have to go to a whatever number he was. I can't remember.
He was 83, though.
Oh, he was 83. That's right. So it's not Chase Claypool. So I'm thinking, or like Juju. And then Boswell's chiming in to say, well, how much would it pay me for 9? And then Josh Dobbs to Devin Bush about the number 5 and all kinds of stuff. It's just, honestly, you know what they're actually doing now? You're thinking, they're going to get more jersey sales. Everybody's going to hit the pause button. No one's going to want to buy jerseys right now because you don't know if a player's going to change their number. So you're going to wait. So it might bump it later, but for now, I think it's going to pause it. You want me to go into more rules? Or you want to
hold on, Brian, that? What's your thought? You're the jersey guy. What's your thoughts on the jersey situation?
I like traditional jerseys, but I have no problem when the wide receivers opened it up to have number 11 and 19, and when they were able to do that so much more, and it doesn't bother me whatsoever. I remember way back in the day, Brad Van Pelt, who was an inside linebacker or middle linebacker for the New York Giants, wore number 10. And I always thought that was cool. And back then I knew that. I'm like, this is weird. Why? He's a linebacker. Why is he wearing 10? But we would have seen Devin Bush Jr. come in with the number 10, most likely. He would have come in with that number. We could have seen Ryan Shazier come in with 10. Travis Etienne, he's going to have to, if he gets drafted by the Steelers, he would have to go, just like Dave said, he would have to go to Boswell and say, hey, what can I do here? How do I get my number 9 back? Then you have guys on the team, the guys that are going to be switching. This is where I'm going to just slightly disagree with Dave. Most of the guys that are going to switch are going to be a guy like McFarland Jr. And Anthony McFarland Jr. is going to probably want to switch back to number 5 if he can get it, if it's open. I know Dobbs is back, but he'd like to get that number. Nobody bought his jersey last year, unless your last name was McFarland and you're a family member. That's, or me. No, I didn't buy his number. But what I'm saying is Joe Hayden said if this was back in the day, if he was a younger player, he would be switching to get his college number. But now he doesn't want to do it. He's entrenched in 23, and that came out when this rule proposal came out. So what's going to happen here is they are going to sell a lot of jerseys, rookie jerseys, because they're going to be more attractive, because they're going to look cool being a number 9 or an 8 on a running back, and it's going to look different. If they were going to change the numbers, though, I want them to let the quarterbacks change their number. And I'd like to see a number 22, a Doug Flutie. I'd like to see, somebody wearing like 97 at quarterback. I think that would be cool. But they're not letting everybody do it. You will not see an offensive lineman wearing 6.
Yeah, TB12 had a problem with these numbers. He wasn't very happy with it, saying how you're supposed to know who's what and where on the field based on the number. I don't know how much. I mean, that does help you figure out eligible receivers, but I don't think they messed with that. I honestly, if they really wanted to make the fans happy, with ones that have bought previous jerseys, what I would have said is, if you've been with a team with a number for more than 2 years, you can't change. If you go to a different team or you're a draft pick, you can have these new rules. But let's not go but that doesn't work either. So
do a buyback program.
Yeah.
Say you'll bring in your old jersey. We'll give you 10% off on a new one. You take those old jerseys, give them to the Salvation Army, the Boys and Girls Club, whatever, and they'd be happy to have a 19 Juju Smith-Schuster. If he changes it to 9, it doesn't matter to them.
Yep.
The Ray Rice plan. Remember they do that with Ray Rice?
Did they do that?
Yeah, the Baltimore Ravens allowed you to bring your Ray Rice jersey in and exchange it for anything.
They straight up swap. It wasn't a discount. Swap. Wow.
It was only one though.
Yeah.
Because I know people that did it.
Yeah. Anyways, what other rule changes were there?
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you can only have so many players within 25 yards of the kickoff on the receiving team. I think it's 9. That means you got to have 2 players back. They changed. I'll do some of the simple ones and then come back to maybe other ones we want to do. On point after attempts, if you're going for 2, if on one play a team gets a penalty and then the next play the other team gets a penalty, both penalties still count. It used to be they would just do away with the first one, which was weird. So now all penalties will still be enforced no matter what. They took away overtime from preseason, which is good because now you don't have to try to go for 2 to make sure there's not overtime like coaches would try to do. I'm still trying to remember some of the other ones. I mean, the big one is they're kind of expanding the role of the replay official, that they have more say in other situations. And I still can't grasp. Are they like allowed to buzz down now from certain things? Because they didn't say that specifically, but that's the impression that I got, that they can. It's still kind of like, it's not the full eye in the sky idea, but it's a more of a step towards it. They're giving them more of a role rather than just saying they're a whole brand new official to call anything. They're just certain things they can call.
So let me read it to you. This is what it says. According to the new rule, the replay official and designated members of the officiating department may consult with on-field officials or conduct a replay review or advise the game officials on specific objective aspects of a play where clear and obvious video evidence is present, and or to address game administration issues, including, but not limited to, penalty enforcement, proper down, the spot of a foul, game clock possession, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what they had to say. And Art Rooney said, quote unquote, some of the comments we had were along the lines of just too much replay, and I personally think we should do one or the other. He does not like the fact that New York is still involved. His thought is, if you're going to have a person upstairs in every stadium, why do we need New York City involved in this? Like, do one or the other. Like, why do we need New York involved if you have someone up there and that's their specific job? So I don't know. When he says too much replay, I mean, shoot, it brings back nightmares of Jesse James. And if you don't have the obsession with replay, that's just a touchdown and the Steelers win the football game. Instead, it gets analyzed like with a fine-tooth comb, and we all know how it pans out. Brian, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I love the idea of the eye in the sky, but being in every stadium. So I'm fully on board with R2 on this. You just brought up Jesse James. I think that's a different ruling if that replay official is in the stadium. And it's just like being on the field. It's kind of a cop-out when you're in New York. It's like, okay, we'll blame New York. I think it just works out. So many things work out so much different. If you're the eye in the sky, you need to be the official on the team. New York needs to go.
It's like the Immaculate Reception where the officials went into the Pirates dugout, got on the phone. Can we get security to get us to the airport? And they said no. And they said, touchdown's good. We're out of here.
Oh, I love the 70s.
Dave, what are your thoughts on the replay stuff?
They're still tinkering with it all this time later because it's so imperfect, but I don't know that they're ever going to get it perfect. So I do like the whole notion of if you're going to have someone in stadium, why you need New York? If you're going to have New York do it, why is there someone in stadium? There's no need for both.
To me, anytime replay gets tweaked, it reminds me of the one season that they decided to make pass interference a challengeable play. And what happened? Every time it was
Disaster.
challenged, it never got overturned, even when it was obvious, except when it was with Pittsburgh.
Well, no, that's what set it off was that Seattle game when they overturned it when there was nothing to show that that everything showed the right call was made on the field. And when they did that and screwed up the game, that's when they realized we should not overturn these
and
ever.
They never
and then they did for like 8 weeks. Yeah, it's crazy.
This doesn't seem as knee jerk as the pass interference challenge because that was right off the heels of the Rams and Saints NFC Championship game, and everyone was like, "We got to do something about this," and so they do it, and it just didn't pan out. I think this is a little bit more logical, in my opinion. I think it's a little bit more logical. The other rules, though, Dave,
one more.
Go ahead. It was the
loss of down.
Yeah.
If you throw the ball, it was a play where I can't remember. A quarterback threw the ball, but got batted back to him. He caught it and he threw it again, and it ended up being a penalty. But they added now that's a loss of down as well as a penalty. So,
and they're considering getting rid of the chop block.
Yeah, that was something they were talking about, but that wasn't
because they said that without let's say there's a cornerback that's trying to set the edge for the defense, say a Mike Hilton type. And there's a pulling guard, say a David DeCastro type. If he can't go low on that lineman, he has no way of kind of defending himself. Mm-hmm. That was not made official. That was tabled, I think, for next year.
Yes, it was. And they added one bylaw that the teams have to submit anytime a player tries out or visits. They have to submit it to the league office, but they did change the timing of when the league office lets that known to everybody.
Well, what was the thing that just happened today? Thursday when we were just talking about it on Slack. 5 players. They're only allowing 5 players, and that's describe that so I can make sure I understand.
That for rookie mini camp, which is after the draft, they are only allowing 5 tryout players. A tryout player is a player that was not drafted and is not signed as an undrafted free agent, not on the 90-man roster. Normally you would have 10 to 15 of these types of players, just, more bodies of guys that were invited to come try out, still weren't signed as undrafted free agents. So, and they added a couple without, the infamous Tuzar Skipper was a tryout player, wasn't he?
So was Duck Hodges.
I was going to say Devlin Hodge. Is this? Are they citing COVID for this, or is this just something they're changing?
They didn't cite it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's got to be. But with the NFLPA fighting for not having a bunch of people at the facilities and stuff, so
I feel so bad for some of these players, and I know they're professional athletes, blah blah blah, whatever. But man, these players that have just come out, they're either they're rookies this year or were rookies last year, and it's no one's fault. But my gosh, have they gotten screwed over more times than one? I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, you think about that. What is it? Tyler Simmons is the wide receiver from Georgia who was at the pro day this year, was a rookie last year, and he gets signed by the Steelers. You just think about players like Mike Hilton, in who bounced around, undrafted free agent out of Ole Miss, and I think the Patriots had him, the Jacksonville Jaguars had him for a minute, and then he goes to Pittsburgh and turns it into a lucrative contract with the Bengals in his first stint in free agency. So, I mean, I feel bad for those guys. I hope they stick with it somehow, but they're just not getting the opportunities. Like you said, you guys said Devlin Hodges, Tuzar Skipper. I'm sure there's others out there, but still, it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
They'll still have, bottom line is 5 players not on the 90-man roster that are eligible for rookie minicamp. That's it.
Yeah. All right. I'll tell you what, I want to ask one question before we go into our break. And that is and we're just going to finish up with news here. So the NFLPA, which I have my thoughts on those guys because I'm a union guy myself. Okay. So I'm a part of a union. I understand what that's all about. They put out all these statements. I think there were 15 total teams that said we are not going to participate in voluntary in-person workouts. And then the Steelers were one of those teams. And then next thing you know, they're showing up. Bryan, what are your thoughts on the whole NFLPA stance on these workouts, these OTAs that started on Monday? And what do you think about the players that are like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going anyways?
So where I'm confused is the fact that the Steelers said they weren't going to enforce it, or they were still going to hold them or not hold them at all. So I thought the Steelers were not going to hold these whatsoever. But after listening to what you just said, I'm a little confused. So if you could help me out with that.
I'm pretty sure that the players just said we're not showing up. That doesn't mean that the coaches aren't still going to say to the players, hey, we'll be here. Like the phase 1 of OTAs is just strength and conditioning. So the strength and conditioning coach probably sent out a text, or I don't know what, maybe they use Slack like we do, and said, hey guys, I'm still going to be here. I know what y'all said. I know the NFLPA stuff. That's fine too. If y'all want to work out, I'll be here all day. And guys showed up. So I don't know. You have any other thoughts, Bryan? Or?
Yeah. So after you explained that a little bit better to me, what's going to happen when you do that is you're going to have players feel compelled to show up, because at this point you could weigh it. And I was in a situation with my job last year where they said, oh, well, we're opening it back up for all employees because everybody's saying that they want to work. Well, at this point, if it becomes voluntary, but you speak up and say something, what happens in my job, if I would have came out and said, well, I don't think we should go out there, and everyone's like, oh, we want to get back to work, because of course you're going to tell management you want to work. You don't want to be labeled as the person that doesn't want to. So when you make it so you don't have to come in, but others start to show up, there's the keeping up with the Joneses, and people are going to start coming in. And I think younger players are going to be like, yeah, I don't have to come in, but I better get in there. So it's kind of double-edged there.
Well, the NFLPA, they always cater to the veterans, and I understand that. But they also failed to forget a couple pretty important things. Number one, what about those players that have workout incentive clauses in their contract?
Which none of the Steelers do.
No, Steelers do not, but plenty other teams, you show up for X number of workouts, you get more money. Well, they're all about the players getting their money. Well, what do you do about those teams? What do you do about those players? They're going to want to show up to get their money, and I don't blame them. Another thing is that what about, like you said, Bryan, these young players that are probably just like, I missed out on this all last year, and I just want to get in there. I want to put my best foot forward. I want to show these coaches what I can do. I don't care if it's on the bench press right now. I want to show them that I've been working hard and that I'm ready for this and that I'm prepared. I don't blame them for wanting to go in either. And I also think that it's a situation where the NFL came out, good for them, by the way, and said, if you get injured somewhere else, because they're going to continue to work out elsewhere, you're not covered. You tear an ACL training at the Watt Institute in Wisconsin, the NFL's not covering that bill. Like, it's on you. And so I was like, that makes sense. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I'm looking at the other thing that I had shared with the staff yesterday, where I said, take that NFLPA, was where Tom Pelissero of NFL Network shared a memo from the NFL basically ripping to pieces the injury data that the NFLPA had put out there in order to justify this, and labeled it inaccurate and misleading, and actually gave the data of what happened with injuries and other stuff and things that they can say and couldn't say. So in other words, the NFL is saying, you want to say this is because of, there were less injuries last year? Look at the actual data. Saying it doesn't make it true. Here's the numbers. Here's the data. There's really no justification of what you're saying. So
what also boils down to is we need to remember words matter. Yeah. And what does CBA stand for? A collectively bargained agreement, which was signed last year. The NFLPA has no leg to stand on here. You all signed this agreement. So unless you want to go back to the bargaining table, and I know last year they had a side agreement for the 2020 season, but hey, it is what it is. All right, enough news. When we go back after this break, we're going to be talking about positions the Steelers are going to be targeting in the 2021 NFL Draft, and we're going to be doing it bracket style. So if you're on the audio side, kind of bracket style, sort of, there's going to be challenge flags involved, so you're going to want to come back. So go to part 2. If you're on the audio side, if you're watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, stay tuned. We're not going anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the second part of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. With me, as always, Bryan Anthony Davis, who's the podcast producer, and Dave Schofield, the other co-editor. Here we are in round two, the second segment, and we are going to talk about positions that the Steelers are going to target, but we're going to be doing it by the process of elimination. Dave, take over. You're running this show from now on for just this segment. Go ahead.
All right,
and take it over.
I'm going to say this because I'm sure a bunch of people on Facebook and YouTube right now watching live are wondering, Bryan Anthony Davis, that must be the loudest chair in the universe.
It is. I'm going to get the oil out.
I'm going to say, bust out the WD-40, man.
Because
Sounds like
I
you're on
heard
a boat.
And I'm actually hearing it on shows when I'm editing, and I'm like, all right, let's take that out because you can just hear. I'm like, okay, I can get rid of that.
It's like an old boat. He's on the old boat.
Yeah. What was that? I think you said oil can. Sorry.
That's on the list. There we go.
Sorry. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're basically looking at trying to determine the Steelers, greatest needs. It could be first round pick. We're kind of looking at it. What we're doing is we're taking I'm saying 12 position groups between offense and defense. Those specialists, I'm really sorry, Jeff. We're tossing them out. We're not dealing with punter. We're not dealing with kicker. We're not dealing with long snapper. We're not going to have Colin Holman 2.0. We're taking it out. And what we're doing is now the reason I say 12 positions is because I broke down the offensive line into all three positions of tackle, guard, and center. So we're going to look at those positions, and one by one, we're going to go around and we're each going to eliminate one. Now, if someone thinks we've eliminated one too soon, you're going to throw the challenge flag on that person, and then the third person has to decide. So of our 12 options, we have quarterback, running back, tight end. Just so you know, I included fullback with running back. That's not a separate one. So quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, tackle, guard, center. Defensive tackle, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, safety, and corner. I didn't break corner down into like slot corner because everyone keeps talking about the Steelers really need to draft a slot corner. They can have Cam Sutton playing on the outside when they only have two corners and slide him inside with another corner coming in. They don't have to specifically go that way. It's confusing. So I just left it there. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, Bryan, what's the first position group you're going to eliminate from this list as the biggest needs that the Steelers need to address in this draft?
I will say wide receiver.
You were taking out wide receiver.
So we're not talking. We talking about first round or in general?
Think of it as first round because we're going to basically narrow it down to one eventually.
All right, no, that's fine because if it was. Go ahead, Bryan.
I want them to take a wide receiver. Everybody knows my love for Anthony
not
Schwartz.
In the first round.
Just not up. Just not high. That you think that. See, honestly, that was the second one I took off. So yeah. So I can see that. Jeff, you don't have a problem with that, right?
If it was for the whole draft, I would. But if it's just first round, I agree. No, we're fine.
Okay. So Jeff, what is your next? No, Bryan, did you want to say anything about like 10 seconds of why you feel that way?
Yeah, up high, you don't really want to go with a wide receiver because that's a pretty good core. There's so much you need elsewhere. Like I said, I agree with Jeff. I don't want to get rid of a wide receiver if it's the entire draft because I have that man love right now for Anthony Schwartz at hopefully 140. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would love it.
The Schwartz. All right. Jeff, you ready for the next one?
Hey, the Schwartz be with you. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's a shirt that if that happens, we're registering that day.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go with, did you lump defensive line together or did you have different
because of I didn't do tackle and nose tackle.
All right, so defensive line, I'm going to eliminate that one. Okay. They have everyone coming back. That's all I need to say.
Yeah, that was my number one because they usually only keep 6. Last year they kept 7, and all 7 are back this year.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
You're good with that?
Yep.
Now it's on to me. Especially because we're talking first round and up there. I'm saying safety. I don't want to see them take a safety that high because they're going to struggle to get on the field right away.
Well, they also got Miles Killebrew. Well, I think Miles Killebrew is more of a safety than Jordan Dangerfield was.
I do, but it's so funny because I don't know if they're going to play him at safety or that hybrid linebacker role. We don't know yet, but yeah, I have him penciled in kind of like a safety. So I just think that doesn't need that. I don't think that should be their top pick in the draft.
If they go for a safety, they're going for James Wiggins in round 4
Yeah,
or 4B,
something like that.
I agree completely. That was next on my list. Now my wheels are turning. I'm like, ooh, I got to come up with something good because it's my turn. And I am going to go with the big one. I'm going to go with quarterback. And the reason I'm going to go with quarterback is because, of course, it's a need. However, unless they trade up, and I just don't think that they're going to trade up with all the needs that they have, they're going to be sacrificing too many other positions. If they go ahead and trade up this year, I don't see it happening, so I'm going to take them off the list.
What do you think, Jeff?
Nah, because if they're staying at 24, there's no way a good quarterback falls at 24. So I'll agree with that.
Yeah, that was not the next one on my list, but the one after. So
I've got the next one.
Okay.
The next one you can scratch off is tight end because this class outside of Pitts is trash.
I had that one, the one after quarterback. I have something else before that, but yeah, just that's not as much about the Steelers team need as it is about the draft class.
Yeah. They need a tight end. This is just a horrible draft for one. They're going to bring back Jesse James after the draft, probably.
Or something.
Tyler
Eifert. You were asked about that one too, right?
That was Eli. My man Eli. That was my man Eli on the show.
On Tuesday. That kid's great.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm working a deal right now with Eli and Kyle to have their own show. Pay Eli, pay Kyle, pay Connor.
Yeah. So, because the thing is, the Steelers have a need at tight end, but it's not that much of a need that you would trade up for somebody like Pitts. You know what I'm saying?
Well, how do you?
And then there's no one else.
Pronounce the guy from Penn State's name?
Frymouth.
What?
Frymouth. Okay, Dave. It's your turn.
No, you. Because I kept interrupting.
I think it's Frymouth.
Okay.
I'm going to go with you.
I just don't see him as a first-round talent. So some people are in the live chat saying, "What do you mean they need a tight end?" I get it, and they're saying, "What about him?" In round 2, yeah. I'm not saying that they don't have a team need. That's what you got to keep in mind. This is what position am I saying I don't want them to take a first-round selection on? I don't think that the tight end position, because Pitts, I mean, he's amazing. I would love to have him on the team. It's just not going to happen. He's a top 10 talent. So Frymouth, he'll be day 2 or he'll be a day 2 pick in my opinion.
Yeah,
there you go.
I have one that was still pretty high on my list to cross off. Going with one Michael Beck, guard.
I can see. Okay, yeah.
Because if it's a C/G, that's a different story. I'm talking about G, just a guard. Because I don't see them needing, with other things that they could need, that being the next one. We've got no challenges yet, but now it's when it gets interesting.
Oh, it's going to get – we're going to challenge now, because not for guard, but when I get up here next, because –
we've now made it through the easiest part.
Yeah.
I think now, what are we, down to 6? We're down to 6. This is where it gets a little tricky.
Hold on, Michael Beck. I thought Dave was crossing me off the list.
That's a guard we're keeping.
Michael Beck has just lost his job live on YouTube.
I think he's spectacular.
Spectacular.
So, yeah, I can't disagree with guard whatsoever, because, if they get a CG, that's fine, but everybody's looking for that C more than a G. And remember the last time they got a guard and they moved him to center, because the center they got the next year, Chuck Lanza, didn't pan out, but their guard, Dermontti Dawson, panned out, and now he has HOF next to his name besides C and G.
All right, Bryan, what's the next? This is
Michael Beck's putting his resume out there on the live.
All right. So, you guys...
It gets tough now.
It gets tough, but probably the easiest of the tough ones will be inside linebacker. And the reason I'm going to say inside linebacker, I love Zaven Collins. I know, Jeff, he's number 1 on your list right now. Yeah. But if you're talking about absolute need, I think you need a running back more than you need an inside linebacker. I think you need every other position more than you need this position. I still would take this guy round 1, but for this exercise, it's the next one I've got to cross off because of the presence of 3 guys that could start right now in Spillane, Vince Williams, and of course, Devin Bush Jr. So with that being said, it's hard to put this one at number one.
I'm agreeing that it's going to come off the list, but I'm really tempted to challenge because I think there's a couple other ones that should come off first.
Okay.
What do you think,
Jeff? I'm not challenging this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was in my next group of three, but it was the last one of my next group of three, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I still think there's a couple more that'll top it off. So as long as we kind of go that route, I think we're okay. So I guess we'll go with you there.
All right.
That was actually never mind. I'll tell you at the end.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with cornerback here.
Okay.
And it's the more I look at this stuff and I look at the players, I think this is a really good cornerback class, by the way. I think there's going to be a lot of talent still available on day two. Definitely types of players that could fit in the Steelers scheme really well. I just think that the big names are going to be off the board well before 24. And so that's why I'm kind of just like, okay, you don't want to just get a cornerback because the core like Surtain, Horn, I expect him to be gone. I actually think Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech, even though he has the back issues, I actually think he'll be off the board as well. Everyone is in love with Greg Newsome from Northwestern as well. Those four guys are, I think, the cream of the crop. Some are saying like Asante Samuel Jr. I think he's a day two guy. I think he's a day two guy. Yeah.
I'd love him. I'd love him in the second round if the Steelers could get him. I would.
I don't know if
we got him in our Scobro mock. That would be great.
Right, but not in the first. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
And not if there's something else you haven't addressed and the right players at that position as well in that spot. It's tough.
So for those reasons, I'm taking cornerback off the list in the first round because I just don't see now if J.C. Horn somehow, some way goes to 24.
You take him.
I think you make that pick because I think he could be your cornerback opposite whomever, Joe Hayden for this year. He could start from day one. I think he's that good. So
it's a position that unless something amazing falls in your lap, it's not what you're really considering right now.
Right. Absolutely. So you all can challenge it if you want.
No, we're not going to be complaining if J.C. Horn falls. I'm not going to challenge this, but I do want to ask you if Caleb Farley does fall, what are you thinking? I mean, because that's really. I've been
depends what else with this
the last week. Yeah.
Well, he did go to Indianapolis because people don't realize is Indianapolis still held medical checks in lieu of a scouting combine. He did go. Everything you've heard, although it's from his agent, said that he was given the green light, that he's completely healthy and he's good to go. He is a really talented player if he's healthy. So you have to trust your medical team that if they did their homework, is he good to go? And if they say yes, then you take him. If they say yes and he turns out that he's banged up and he's not going to be good to go, then you fire your medical staff. I don't know what to say.
Well, let me just say this, and I don't think we have any agents in the live chat or on YouTube where all the fun comes after we have the show and you can criticize us. But don't trust an agent. Just like you're not going to trust a fart. Don't trust an agent.
All right. So now we're getting into the tough.
Well, I got the one more than that puts us into the top three.
All right, Dave. Yeah.
The one that after my last turn, the next position that I had, neither one of you two took, and that is in the first round. Unless you get someone really great falling to you, I really don't want an edge rusher.
I was actually going to say that one.
I would take edge rusher off before inside linebacker.
Yeah, I would too.
Because I especially if you look at those three positions that we just took off, all defense, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, and edge rusher, which one do you think could afford an upgrade the most? To me, it's inside linebacker. Not that you don't have options there, but if you're going to upgrade, to me, out of those three positions, I would say inside linebacker, then corner, then outside linebacker.
Well, let's just be devil's advocate here, though, between the two, because you had me convinced for a second. I was like, you're right. I would take edge off first. But you're deeper at inside linebacker right now than you are at edge rusher.
But you're not looking for depth in your first round pick. You're looking for someone that's going to be contributing faster than anybody else that's drafted.
But
that's my, what I'm saying? So I would like them to take two edge rushers in this draft. I just don't want it to be their first round pick.
Yes, but one of the things, the legend in your own mind comment came out because we picked an offensive tackle after taking 5 and narrowing it down to 1 because we took an OT that's not going to start right away, and it quoted your article on how quick guys start and your podcast on how quick guys start. And right now, the inside linebacker, if you draft Zaven Collins, he's not starting week 1. He might start week 6. He's not starting week 1.
He could contribute. He could contribute,
but he's going to contribute.
He might not start in week 1.
An edge will too. An edge will contribute right away. A third one, because
I understand.
How many times do you see TJ Watt, who should have been the defensive player of the year last year, with oxygen late in the game?
Oh yeah, no, it's a need.
True, it's definitely a need.
I say take him off. I'm not challenging it.
Yeah,
but
I'm just saying. It's not that I wouldn't even say it's a day 1 or 2 pick that somewhere in the top 3. I'd be fine with that if they have the right person, depending on what else they're getting.
Is it just me, or is this edge class not that great, anyways?
You have
your top tier guys, but there's just
to me, I think you can have some real lightning in a bottle late. That's what the Steelers can do at times. So that's why I think it's setting up better to do something like that.
Chris Rumph from Duke. That might be a 6th round pick.
Shaka Tony from Penn State.
Shaka Tone.
If it's Tony and not Tone, I don't know. It's got a Y at the end.
Oh no, okay. I mean, I just had to
just saying I butcher all the last names anyway. So we're down to 3.
We're down.
Do you want the recap of the 3 positions left?
Sure.
No,
running back.
Nope.
Running back, offensive tackle, and center.
Oh,
Jeff said sure, so he beat you to it.
I wanted to see one of us just screw that up and pick something we've already picked.
Yeah, it would have been you.
Yeah, I know.
So, what are you taking off the board, Dad?
All right. Gosh, I
know.
This is the one. If you would have said it, I would have been arguing with you.
Okay.
But I'm going to take this one off right now. I'm going to take off center.
That was mine. I think that's the easiest. I don't see a center that's a 1st round pick in this group. Some will say Creed Humphrey.
Should I pull Mike Tomlin?
We don't live in our fears.
No. Throw the challenge, even though I'm going to lose.
Sure.
I have center number 1. I have center as my top, and here's why. If the Steelers believe enough in a center that they think that he's worthy of the 24th pick, then I'm fine with that. Because you want to know what? How about this draft profile? He's really moved up lately and could be a late 1st round pick. He has good size and athletic ability, but there's some things you have to worry about of punch off the line. No, it was over aggressive and needs a lot of work on his footwork and may not be good against faster defensive tackles at the next level is exactly what they said about Marquise Pouncey. So my point is that the reason I have center up there is that if the Steelers think that there's one that's good enough, then I want them to take him. But I'm okay if they say, I don't think any of them are good enough. Because if we don't think they're good enough, or the McShays don't think they're good enough, or the Kuipers don't think they're good enough, or all those other people, I don't care, because I trust the Steelers with this one, that because center is probably one of 2 positions, and the other one's going to be coming up here soon, that the Steelers really need somebody at, that's one of them. And that's why if they chose to go that route, I don't think it's a reach the way some of these guys are moving up. So therefore, if the Steelers would take him, I would be okay with it.
Who is that draft profile you're reading?
That was Marquise Pouncey.
It's Pouncey's. Okay.
Yeah. So that they said he needed to work on his footwork. I'm like, isn't that what made Pouncey so good? Was his footwork? And they're like, yeah, he's really shooting up the draft boards. He might be a late 1st round pick. And he went 17th. Was it 17th, Bryan?
18 or 19.
Yeah, he was in the late teens. I know that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so you challenged Bryan's center.
Yeah, but I'm going to lose because you already said that was your next one. But I just wanted to make that point.
Once I went under the hood and I reviewed the material, I'm actually going to say that it's been overturned. It's been overturned. Center's going to stay. Bryan, you may leave now. No, I'm just you are the biggest loser.
The tribe is struggling.
I would take off
the first time I heard that this week. One last thing about the center position, though. Jeff, I got to ask you. You looked under the hood. That's great.
Yes.
So it seems like you've had a little change of heart. So when Creed Humphrey's name is read next week, are you going to be disappointed?
No, I won't be disappointed.
Because I won't either.
That's the only thing I'm living on. I don't expect them to. I'm not going to be mad if they pass. I just understand that if they go there, it's because the last time they quote unquote reached on a center, it worked out pretty good.
The only reason I'm going to argue this, and now I'm going to be the one to lose, and I have no problem losing. Even the losers, like Tom Petty said,
are you challenging the challenge?
Yes, I just got to have one last word. The reason
all aspects of the play under review the first time. Sorry.
The reason I still think this deserves to be at number 3 is because of guys like Josh Myers, Quinn Miners, Trey Hill. Those guys you can get.
Why are people lumping Quinn Miners into the center? He's a guard that can maybe play center. I did his draft breakdown today. I read about it. I was like, where is everyone putting him into the center category?
Because generally any guard that can play center, when they go, they have him play center.
And he's been working out center. That's why he's being
locked. No, that's fine. I'm just saying.
Huge wild card because of coming from D3, not playing last year. All it takes is one team to want to take him in the right spot.
I will concede.
He's a guy that could completely fall, or he could be a guy that people jump on way too early. I don't see him. If people think he's going to be there for the Steelers' 3rd pick, he's either going to be gone before their 2nd, or the Steelers will pass on him, and he doesn't go to the 5th.
But Josh Myers will be. But I concede. I'm out.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Move to Jeff for the next one of what would really be what we would consider the 3rd one. What do you have?
I actually am going to take offensive tackle off the board. And it's based on the fact that I do like a lot of the tackles in this draft class. I think that several are going to be gone well before the Steelers pick. You're talking about Sewell. You're talking about Slater. Some are saying Jenkins could even go really early. Yeah. And then you're looking at, some of the tackles that are still left. So here's the thing too. It's not just that. It's also the Steelers bring back Zach Banner. They signed Joe Haig. They have Chukwuezefor. Is this player going to contribute right away? And that's another question. I think that even if they do draft a tackle, I'm not sure. I think it would be an open competition, but I'm just not sure that he would be contributing as much as I would want a 1st-round pick to contribute. So therefore, I'm going to take that off.
That was my next one as well. I thought, and this is more about the Steelers' biggest need than it is grading the fantastic tackle class that's out there. You know what I'm saying? Because you can get such a good player, and I'm still not going to be shocked if they take a tackle in the 1st round. I wouldn't. I mean, part of me is kind of hoping for it, but
he's throwing a challenge.
Actually, no, I'm putting it down. But I just wanted to do the fake.
I was going to say, is that a golf glove or something? What is
it's a work glove, but it's red, and it's the closest thing I got. Yeah.
So that leaves us with the one position then, right, Dave?
Well, technically 2, because
that's right, center and
center or running back. And honestly, to me, the 2 are neck and neck. I had put center as my very top one, but really after talking and challenging, I would concede to put center 2. I just felt that center was more than tackle, in my opinion, that it's the bigger need for them to draft if they believe the right players there. That's the biggest issue with the Steelers with that. The question is, do they want to take one of the great tackles that'll still be available to them at 24 over something else? Because I think there's going to be if they desperately needed a tackle, they would have their choice. The thing is, are they going to go with one of these other needs? So I'm going to say, let's go ahead and eliminate center and leave the other one, is what I'm going to say.
So you're saying running back is the number 1?
Yeah, I had it as number 2, but it was so close. It was basically a coin flip.
All right, Bryan.
I'm going to save my comments for my final thoughts. Okay. I agree with the running back.
Okay. I'm not going to challenge that either. Like you said, they're neck and neck. And really, folks, when it comes down to it, we're really just we're splitting hairs here at the end. I mean, if Christian Darrisaw falls to 24, I wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers run to the podium and say, "That's my guy. I want that guy," because he could be your bookend tackle for the next decade plus, and so you're not going to pass on that.
And I agree with the whole notion of not sure that I want a running back in round one, because like I even said something today, because I was doing the 2017 draft class and it was about James Conner, is that he's missed a lot of time, but that's extremely common with running backs in the NFL today. They are look at the big name running backs that missed the majority of 2020.
Yeah.
Barkley, McCaffrey. That's the nature of the position. And so when you're talking about a short shelf life, there, I got it out, and a bigger occurrence of injury than probably almost any other position, it makes it really tough to say that you want to invest your top pick in that. But you can't say that it's not a need for the Steelers.
And for the running back crew out there, everyone always asks, like, well, what do you think about Etienne, or however you say his name, or Harris? Mm-hmm. That's not my favorite running back in the draft. That's not my favorite. Probably my favorite player in the draft, all positions, is Javonte Williams out of North Carolina. I just think that guy was like born to wear black and gold. The way that he runs the football, he runs so hard. If they took him at 55, oh my gosh, I'd be so excited. Be so happy. Okay, we're running long. Good job, Dave, for running that. Trivia. Go for it.
Yeah, real quick one. I was looking at draft and the Steelers draft, or not just Steelers draft, and NFL drafts. And because I did an exercise of looking at colleges that have been drafted in the NFL, I decided to look at our three alma maters. And I'm going to tell you something. And the question is, which one of our alma maters was this player drafted from? Where the first one is, this player was drafted and became a Pro Bowler. Was that from my Frostburg State University, Jeff's Shepherd College / University, or Bryan's University of Pittsburgh, Johnstown? Did I say that right, or did I screw up the order of it?
You throw an at in there, but that's okay.
Yeah. So
I know it's not Shepherd.
Mm-hmm. Who was drafted and became a Pro Bowler of the three schools? Bryan, do you have an answer?
I'm going to go with Pitt at Johnstown.
I will go ahead and
you can say who.
In the 1989 draft with the 12th round pick, the Steelers selected Carlton Hasselrig out of the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. And the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown did not have a football team. They did not. Yep. Carlton Hasselrig, may he rest in peace, he passed away last July. He was a 6-time NCAA wrestling champion. Mm-hmm. And now you're probably going to say, how's he 6-time champion? Back then, when he was a sophomore, he competed in the Division II championships.
Yeah, because
he won.
And went to the Division I, right?
And when you win, you go up to the Division I. So 3 years in a row, he won Division II and Division I. In fact, he even beat Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff's brother for the championship in one of those. Now, after that happened, they changed the rule. You couldn't do that anymore. So you can't have another 6-time champion. But they did not have a football team. Teams like the Browns were looking at him. He had undrafted free agent deals ready. Steelers had one last pick, 12th round. They said, hey, let's make it tough. He's right in our backyard. We'll take him right now.
So, all right, I got more questions. Whose alma mater? We gotta get moving with this.
Yeah.
Whose alma mater had a player drafted that had 32 career NFL touchdowns?
Not my school.
I think I know the answer for Jeff's, so I'm going to say Dave's.
The answer would be one Wayne Wilson from Shepherd College, drafted in 1979 by the Houston Oilers. He was drafted by the Oilers, but out of his 32 touchdowns, 30 of them came for the team he played for in 79 through part of 1986, and that was the New Orleans Saints. So
there you go.
And I have one more.
All right.
Whose alma mater had a player drafted that was a defensive player, but yet scored a touchdown in their NFL career?
Can I take this one?
Yes.
I'm going to say Jeff's. And it's going to be Howard Jones.
That would be one Bob Maddox, drafted in 1973 from Frostburg State University. He was drafted in the 7th round by the Cincinnati Bengals, and in his rookie season, recovered a fumble on a special teams play for a touchdown.
See, what you don't know. What you don't know is that Dick Shiner and Buzz Nutter went to Shepherd, and so
so the question is, Jeff, do you have any idea? Because who you said, Bryan, he was not drafted. He was an undrafted free.
Right. I knew that he was the last. He was the last Shepherd player to make it to the NFL.
He did score a touchdown in 2015 for Tampa.
It was a preseason.
No,
was that regular season?
He scored a regular season touchdown for Tampa. Yep.
Yeah, I think he scored a touchdown for the Steelers, in preseason.
Preseason, yeah.
But with Tampa, yeah.
Whose alma mater has the most NFL players?
Not mine.
Say Shepherd.
I'll say Shepherd.
I'll say
Shepherd has had 5.
Wow.
Yep. I already said Wayne Wilson, and we said Howard Jones. Then the most recently, other than Jones, was tight end Dominique Jones in 2012. In 2009, kicker Ricky Schmidt. And this was
for Arizona.
Sorry,
for Arizona.
I missed one. The most recent, 2018, safety Trey Sullivan, where Frostburg State University had 4 players that played in the NFL. So, and they were all they had one in 2018, a nose tackle, Niall Scott, but the other ones were in the 80s in 1987, a defensive end, Sean McInerney, and a nose tackle, Murray Wichard. So, just thought that was fun while I was looking at schools. When I noticed all 3 of our schools were on the list where you could sort them out, I'm like, yeah, I want to know what this is.
Shepherd is a legit Division II football program,
and I like their coach Ernie McCook. I believe he's a Steelers fan, and Ernie, I met him not too long ago, and really good guy.
Yeah, super nice guy.
One of my 3 people that follow me on Twitter.
Yay!
Right. So I'm done.
Are you hashtagging right now?
Hashtag.
All right,
Loser.
Bryan. You said. All right, Bryan. You said you had trivia.
Yes, the Steelers, in their history, have drafted 2 Hall of Fame coaches from the NCAA ranks. One in basketball, one in football. Who are they?
Let's say that question again.
Yeah, say it again. Seattle has 2 losses. Sorry.
So oh my God, I just said Seattle. So the Steelers, I'll even give you the dates. 1947 and 1953. The Steelers have these guys with draft picks. They drafted these guys to play for the Steelers. One ended up being a legendary basketball coach in the NCAA Division I, and the other was a legendary Division I football coach. Who are they?
Let's go. Legendary basketball coach. Let's go Bobby Knight, and legendary college football coach. I don't even know if these time frames make sense. I don't know. Let's go Bear Bryant. That was probably way too.
Actually, that's not that bad, but it's not. This guy won some This guy won some national championships with a very storied program in football.
Dick Shiner.
Dick Shiner, it is. Jeff, you win the Bork Glove. I at least basketball.
I at least put names out there.
When you said 47 and 53, you can audibly hear me say, "I'm out."
I did. I heard you say it. All right, Gene Cady.
Okay,
from the Purdue Boilermakers. Yeah, very legendary coach, still alive. In football, even more of a legend. The Golden Dome of Notre Dame, Ara Parseghian. So there you go.
Wow,
good stuff.
All right.
Shocked when I read it.
Yeah.
Hey,
good stuff.
Can't wait till the three of us are on here again.
Well, we got to do final thoughts. Bryan has saved some stuff. Let's hustle up. We're already 10 minutes over. Go ahead, Bryan.
I know the podcast producer. It's okay. He'll give you a break. So, look, we talked about position groups today, and there's been this debate on where do you draft a player? Is it too early to draft them in the first round? But if the Steelers want this guy, they're going to go ahead and get this guy. You both mentioned how we trust the Steelers and the coaching staff and how they're looking at personnel. We worry all the time about the Artie Burns situation where you're reaching for a position. This draft is so deep and the Steelers have so many needs that they can go running back, center, edge, and it could be great. They can go center, running back, offensive tackle, and it could be great. They're going to get somebody nice in that with that fourth round pick, with those 2 fourth-round picks. I love how this draft works out, and I think they're going to do it right. So I'm really pumped. I think I'm more pumped for this draft next Thursday night and being on with both of you and the rest of our staff talking about this pick, because I think this could be a very good draft for them, because I love how deep it is. The reason it's so deep, hey, you had so many players take off because of COVID, but they're on the list. And those players that had to be replaced, those guys are now on the list who wouldn't have been. So that's why this is a much deeper draft than you would ever know. That's why I'm pumped for this. And they are going to do due diligence. And no matter what the order, they're going to get that center you want. Maybe not the name you want, but they're going to get the center. They're going to get the running back. They are going to get the offensive tackle. They might get 2 offensive tackles, like Dave says, but they're going to do it. They've been studying for this for a long time, a lot more than any of us have been studying for these shows.
All right, Dave, final thoughts.
I just like that Bryan said doo-doo. They have to do their due diligence.
Oh, I did. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I'm sorry. That's the elementary school humor in me. I'm going to laugh every time I hear that. Final thoughts are when the three of us are back together again, it's going to be great because the Steelers will have already made their first round pick, which is fantastic. I will tell you, one of the things that I'm trying to steer clear of is the Steelers in the first round. The Steelers have to. Okay. No, they don't. You might want to say in the first 2 days, the Steelers have to. You could maybe get some stuff in there, but to think that this is not one of those years where we had an Artie Burns situation because you knew the Steelers were going to have to go corner. What else were they going to do with that pick and things like that? There are multiple options that the Steelers have at the very top, and that will determine how the rest of it plays out. And you're like, oh my goodness, all the running backs were there and they didn't draft one. Well, maybe it's because they had someone as a round 2 grade that no one else did that they like even better. I don't know. I kind of trust them with the process and hope it all works out because you know what? They've done pretty good drafting. And I know we look at some drafts like, oh, yuck, that was bad. When you look at the averages, they did really well. And I know some people fear that they need to knock this draft out of the park. And the law of averages are saying they had such a good one last year. Maybe it's going to be a down one this year. Nah, let's just say, hey, they did great. Let's just keep trending up. Can't wait.
Couldn't say it better myself. So make sure you check out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for all your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. Should be your one-stop shop for all things Steelers. Make sure wherever you get your podcast, search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. Subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do so you don't miss a thing. All right, next time you see us, we'll be recapping the Steel. Maybe we could be recapping a trade. I don't know. Because we'll be back next Thursday talking about something. So, all right, Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
Perfect. All right, we'll see y'all next week. Enjoy the draft. Let's do it.